back with another case. This time, it's the murder at Merivale Manor. This was another case by Cryptic Killers. If you haven't seen the last one, Murder in Miami, I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to try another one. This one's set in 1920, so I thought I'd have a little fun and dress up here. So let's get right into it. Here are all the documents. I went ahead and scanned them. If you're wondering how I play this game, you can read in the description below. Also, if you're wondering if I'll share any documents, I don't share documents, so sorry. First, we can go ahead and read the introduction. Read the evidence, eliminate the suspects, find the killer. On July 4th, 1927, Astrid Pelham fell from the top floor balcony of the luxurious Merivale Manor, impaling her body on a statue below. The cause of her death remains a mystery, shrouded in whispers of murder, suicide, and even supernatural intervention. Detective Michael Fitch was tasked with solving the mystery of Astrid's death, but he was consumed by the case, never able to shake the feeling that the truth was just out of reach. For decades, the case file was forgotten, buried deep in the chronicles of police archives. In 2022, Rick Fitch, the great-grandson of Detective Michael Fitch, stumbled upon the case file while cleaning out his relative's attic. Armed with Detective Fitch's notes and his own research from the libraries and archives of New York City, Rick is determined to finally solve this long-forgotten case. Inside the case file, you'll find evidence collected by Detective Fitch, including photographs, statements, maps, and newspaper clippings. With Rick's recent findings, some of which is stored in an online email inbox, there's more to uncover than ever before. You must piece together the clues to finally solve the mystery of Astrid Pelham's death. But be warned, as you delve deeper into the case, you'll discover that not everyone is as innocent as they appear. Your mission is clear. Read through the evidence, find alibis for the innocent suspects, and, through the process of elimination, find the killer. Will you be the one to finally bring closure and solve the mystery of Astrid Pelham's death? The truth is waiting to be revealed. Inside the folder, we have some more information. Important. Welcome to this immersive unsolved case file game by Cryptic Killers. Astrid Pelham died mysteriously on July 4th, 1927, impaled on a statue after falling from a balcony at Merivale Manor. The cause remains unknown, with rumors of murder, suicide, and supernatural involvement. So some of this we already read. In 2022, Rick Fitch discovered the original case file in an attic, and now, with your help, he is determined to solve the case. Inside the case file, you'll find photos, statements, maps, and more. You'll also access an online inbox containing additional evidence. Your mission is simple. Read the evidence, eliminate the innocent suspects, and find the killer. Instructions. As the lead detective working on this case, your aim is to find the killer or killers. Finding the killers won't be easy. You'll need to familiarize yourself with all of the evidence provided, including any online content that is mentioned. Internet access will be required to crack this case, which is easy because I'm already on my computer. Having observed all of the evidence, it may be helpful to identify potential suspects and their motives, determine which suspects each piece of evidence belongs to, and attempt to find an alibi for as many of the suspects as possible. Through the process of elimination, we're confident that you'll bring the culprits to justice. Then it just says if I'm missing any evidence, I go here, and if I need hints. But when I do find the killer, you head over to this site. Alright, so now we'll just go through the evidence one by one. As you can see, there are some letters, there are some snippets from books. Looks like a lot of text. I'm not sure if I'm going to read all of it. I might skim through some things, but of course you can always pause if you want to read something. So first, we do have a letter, and then looks like a checklist to make sure I have all the necessary documents. Merivale Manor, Saturday, May 21st, 2022. This is the project journal of Rick Kevin Fitch of Sycamore Avenue, Rockville Center, New York. In 1995, my great-grandfather Michael Fitch died a few weeks shy of his 99th birthday. Wow, that's pretty old. I wasn't born when he died, so I never met him. Wait, he wasn't even born? Wait, so how old does that make Rick? The oldest he could be is 27. But my grandpa told me about him, about how he had been a detective many years ago. Recently, my grandpa also passed away, and during the clear out of his house, I found his father's trunk in the attic. Upon closer inspection, I realized it contained a secret panel hiding some of his old case files, and the file that stood out to me was the investigation into the death of Astrid Pelham. I remember my grandpa telling me that this case had haunted his father until the day he died. Pelham died in 1927 during a 4th of July party held at Merivale Manor, one of the most famous mansions on Long Island. After falling from the 3rd floor balcony, her body was impaled on the trident of a statue of Neptune. Ouch. Situated in the courtyard below. My great-grandfather's investigation failed to definitely prove it was a murder, and to this day, theories abound as to whether she was pushed or not. Unfortunately, it seems some pieces of my great-grandfather's notes are missing. He has some witness and suspect statements, but not all of them. I don't know whether they've been lost to time or if some were just never kept in the first place. Hopefully, I can find the material to plug those gaps in the archives. So I've decided to see, with the help of my great-grandfather's notes, many trips to various libraries and archives in New York City, and some help from people I've talked with via email, if I can solve the mystery once and for all. And if I can't, perhaps whoever is reading this journal can. This file contains all the research I have done into Pelham, Merivale Manor, the Merivale family that lived there, and the other people suspected of her murder. Then we have some sources here. This will probably come in handy. I'm pretty sure all this will make more sense when I see the other documents. I made a dedicated email address for this project, which can be found at gocompupost.com. Okay, we'll have to go there. Email login, rickfitch@gocompupost.com. Password, the film Astrid Pelham starred in, plus animals Eustace's friend looked after, plus year of Dredge Point. No spaces, all lowercase. All right, so we have our site, we have our email login. We just need to figure out the password. Don't think I need to take any notes. I'll just reference this when we get to that point. You all can feel free to take notes along the way. If you played it already, don't spoil it for anyone. This is, I guess, if you're missing anything. Please check the following list, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's move on. So I'm kind of going through in the way that it came in the folder. I did rearrange a few things just to match the type of document. But yeah, if you're wondering if I'm going in any particular order, it's mostly the way it came in the folder. And the first piece was this little piece of paper that's front and back. I'm not sure which side is the front, actually. I suppose I'll just read the way that I have it. So the top part says, remains to be seen as our sportsmen and women continue to tram for the Amsterdam Olympics to be held in 2 years' time. Preparations are underway by the city of Los Angeles for the games that will follow them in 1932. A long way away, you might think, but the city is keen to use the games as an opportunity to show America off to the world, thus being the first time the games will be held on American soil since the St. Louis Games of 1904. William May Garland of the California Ex-Olympiad Association said today that the city is on a budget to ensure the 10th Olympics will be the biggest and the best games yet. However, Garland has to fight on his hands for the opportunity to hold the third Winter Olympics. As the introduction of the second Olympics Games for those sportsmen of the snow and ice 2 years ago proved to be a great success, they'll be going for gold again in St. Moritz, Switzerland in February 1928. So this is at least before 1928. However, Godfrey Dewey, son of library innovator Melville Dewey, is making the case for the games to be... Okay, so they're just fighting over what's to have the Winter Games. Something to do with Olympics. Not too sure. Definitely don't have enough information. We'll just keep going. Meanwhile, the Syracuse Fairgrounds played host to the Women's Motor Car Racing Spectacular on Saturday. Once again, Astrid Pelham left the competition in the dust as she walked away with the first place trophy. So she's a motor car racer? Frances Manx, the former number one, was forced to take second. This marks the 10th time in as many races that Pelham has emerged victorious. When interviewed about her success, Pelham chalked it up to a drifting technique I learned in France. It allows me to keep my speed up on the turns and save precious seconds. Just like a Mario Kart. I haven't decided if I'll share the secret yet. Maybe if I ever get bored of winning, but that hasn't happened yet. I need to keep track of what I'm looking for the password as well. Meanwhile, when Manx was asked if there was any rivalry between the two, she said, only a friendly one. We're good friends off the track. She's doing a lot of good to boost the exposure of women's racing. So I hope she sticks around instead of heading back to Europe. I mean, I can't lie. It does smart to always be taking silver, but I know I'll be back on top of the podium one day. Just you see. So I did see ahead already that Frances is one of the suspects. Maybe we should look at the pictures first. So there were 6 pictures in here. The first one we see Frances Manx. This is front and back. So she is also a race car driver. Then we have Mark Tewksbury. We saw this name as well. It was right here, the early plays of Mark Tewksbury. So he's a playwright. We have Clarence III. He's standing next to a car. Margaret Merivale. They look pretty wealthy, I suppose. Bernard Ross in front of a pyramid. There was a reference to Egypt. Right here, Egyptomania. So maybe that has some significance here. And lastly, we have Clarence IV, who's wearing a hat, just like me. Okay, so now that we have some idea of some of the characters in this story, now we can continue on reading. Actually, first I want to keep some notes on each person just so I don't lose track of things. So I guess the only thing I know so far is that they were both race car drivers and that Francis always lost to Astrid. That could be some jealousy involved there. Is it strong enough for murder? Who knows? Lots of prize money involved, right? Or pride as well. All right, next we have some newspaper clipping. Births, marriages, deaths. Birth, marriage, and death notices sent by mail will not be inserted. They must be handed in at the publication office and be endorsed with the name and residence of persons authorized to have the same published. First we have births. Birch on September 24 to Zachariah and Edith. What does that say? Something Danby. A daughter, Katrina, sister to Bertram. Then I'm guessing this is the surname here. Then we have Devon on September 22nd to Elizabeth. Something, is it Nay? Is it an old term? I don't know. Sedgwick. I'm guessing this is their maiden name. And Peter, a son, Edward, brother to Gilbert. Then we have Omari, or Mary, on September 25 to Arthur and Phyllis Baker, a son, Barry, brother to Harry and Larry. I see a trend in the way they're naming their children. It's like if you watched Parks and Rec, there's that guy, Gary, Terry, Larry. Forthcoming marriages. Mr. F.A.Q. Bennington and Miss L.R. Charteris. I don't know if I'm not even close to how to pronounce this. The engagement is announced between Frederick Benjamin, second son of Mr. and Mrs. Leonard Bennington of Boston, Massachusetts. Oh my gosh, okay, there's so many details here. I don't know if I really need to read all of this. If something about genealogy or family origins come up, I'm going to come back here, okay? Well, at least in deaths, I see Merivale right away. Elijah, son of Clarence III and Margaret, brother of Clarence IV. Okay, so we saw a picture of Clarence III, Margaret, and Clarence IV. So he had a brother and he died. So Elijah has been declared dead, having been missing for 7 years. He disappeared without a trace from his home in Rockhampton, New York, aged 8, and all attempts to locate him have failed. In the absence of a body, the family will be holding a memorial service at St. John's Church, Rockhampton. Wow. Okay. So let me check back on what date it happened. Oh, you're right. It was July 4th because there was a July 4th party. So that's October 2nd. That's much later. I'm just seeing if there would be any alibis here. Okay, I'm just going to move on for now. In the back, it looks just like some advertisements. How well you look. Beautiful powder. Cigarette ad. Toothpaste. And a car. This looks like the car in the picture, huh? I'm not sure if that's going to be relevant, but I'm not going to rule out anything. Next is another newspaper clipping back in front. So I'm going to try to go through this really quickly. But in the back, you see some pictures of a bicycle or bicycles. 1, 2, 3. 3 models. And then probably another ad for either jewelry or flowers. I'm not too sure. Okay, letters to the editor. October 12th, 1926. Dear Sir, in regards to Nicholas Dunn's article, could talking pictures soon become a reality? I must say I highly doubt such a concept as talking movies is ever going to become a success. Before I forget, I need to go back and see what I'm looking for the password. Okay, so a film that Astrid Pelham starred in. Animals Eustace's friend looked after, so I don't think I've seen Eustace yet. Year of Dredge Point. Okay, just got to keep those in mind. All right, where was I? At best, I see it will be a frivolity, a gimmick that'll entertain people for a couple of weeks or months, but no longer than that. Yes, it will help fill the seats of our nation's picture houses for a while, but people will soon grow bored with them. Really? For that is the way with novelties. They only have so much novelty value, and after said value is spent, the people will move on to the next thing, and they will demand their silent pictures back. Proper films the way they were meant to be made. I will grant Mr. Dunn the decency and admit that his article made some valid points in the argument for why filmmakers might want to make use of this new way of filmmaking, but I think he overhypes the benefits of talking movies to an absurd degree. At best, I can see it that silent films and sound films coexist, but for the latter to completely wipe out the former, the idea is absurd. At the end of the day, I consider myself a man with a good sense of what the public opinion is, but I can only speak for myself. Maybe I'm mistaken, and this time I have completely misread the general consensus on this topic, but I have real difficulty in believing that the predictions he made in this piece will come true. I suppose time will tell. Respectfully yours, Kirk Marmot. A lot of names I'm not recognizing. Dear Sir, I wish to complain about the coverage your newspaper devoted in the issue dated October 10, 1926, to the firing of 5 men from one of my factories. I have up until now regarded this newspaper with great esteem, but I found the article entitled Worker Disconnect Brewing at Merivale Industries severely wanting. It flew in the face of the commitment for balanced, objective reporting that you print on your front page every day. Okay, so there's some incident here where 5 people were fired? I'm not objecting to the facts your report presented that the employees in question were fired. That is undeniable. What I am objecting to, however, is the tone of the piece that failed to put forth both sides of the argument. The author of the article frequently called into question my behavior. My behavior? Who is he again? My factories. So if it's the owner of Merivale Industries, it is by Clarence III. So he's writing this to the newspaper. The author of the article frequently called into question my behavior, using such charged words as ruthless, callous, and cruel. The fact of the matter is that the employees who were let go were about to bring the reputation of Merivale Industries into repute, so I did what I had to. Rest assured that I did not take any glee from my actions. I was disappointed that it had come to what it had came to, but I felt it was the only option available for me. They were hardworking, obedient employees, but I take great pride in the reputation of both myself and Merivale Industries, and I have no qualms in taking whatever steps necessary in order to uphold that reputation. One has to do what one has to do, so if the situation calls for drastic action, then one needs to take it, especially when one is in a position of great status such as myself. Not being boastful, simply matter of fact. You can't afford to be soft. If you act soft, you're done for. You can't afford to have your authority undermined. I am proud of the good name the Merivale family and business has, so I will not put up with people who are determined to drag it through the mud. I feel the biased tone of your report did just that. However, despite what some people think, I am a fair man, and I feel printing this letter and apologizing will sufficiently readdress the balance, and I need not make a formal complaint. However, I may reconsider this behavior if it continues in future reporting. Yours, Clarence Merivale III. All right, then we see a last one here that's cut off. Dear Sir, I find it incredulous that plans to go ahead with the full-scale construction of the Copler project as detailed in the edition of this newspaper dated October 8th. To my knowledge, such a concept has never worked in any of the places where they have been built. I do believe Toronto had a similar project in the works. ... Okay, and we did see the back already, so let's move on. We saw these pictures, so we'll go on to this row here. This is a test shot, date July 4th, 1927 at 9 a.m. Conditions, cloud rolling in from forecasted storm. This is 1927. This is the morning of the day that she died. So there was a storm a-brewing. We can see the statue right here with the trident, but I don't see the top of the trident. It could just be the scan. Don't know what else is significant here. We'll definitely come back if we need to. Next, we have these 3 documents from American Telegraph. So this is a telegram sent, received at post office. Number of words 19, 38 cents paid up front from Rockhampton. And it was on July 4th at 10:27 a.m. So someone had to be at the post office at 10:27 a.m. because the other one is via dispatch rider, but this one was at the post office. So send the following telegram subject to the terms which are hereby agreed to. Sender, Tewkesbury, filled out at post office. To Christopher Cross, and then some address. Ran lines with Pelham, but she can't act, stop, abandon idea, and find actual actress. Let's play be catastrophe. Okay. So Tewksbury was a playwright. For the password, we're looking for a film, but I will at least note that Tewksbury did not like Pelham as an actress. Also that he was at the post office at 10:27 a.m. I'm not sure if there's a more proper term for someone who writes plays, but I'm just going to write playwright. And then that he didn't like Astrid's acting and wanted her out of his play. And then also that he was at the post office at 10:27. So is that really a strong enough motive? Not really, but you never know. We'll just have to see. All right, next we have another telegram that was sent or received at the post office. Oh, also it shows which office it was, right? So this one was in Rockhampton, New York. Maybe I do need to take a note of that. So at Rockhampton Post Office. Okay, so next one is sender C. Cross, filled out at post office. This is July 4th at 4 p.m. Okay, so he's just responding to Tewksbury, right? At the Merivale Manor in Rockhampton. What's he doing at Merivale Manor? Deal finalized with Pelham. Management, they're backing play with her as lead. Stop acting. Ability irrelevant. Rehearsals begin when she returns. Your opinion noted but disregarded. So they are just moving ahead with Pelham, and he wouldn't have found out until 4 p.m. So maybe that is useful to know. But if it was received at the post office at 4 p.m., when would he actually read this letter, right? So they got a return letter from Cross at 4 p.m. moving forward with Astrid. I don't know when Mark would have found the news out. Actually, I don't know if we have a time of death yet either. So I'm just going to make notes of any times that are said in the documents. All right, so a third and last telegram. It was July 4th at 4:51 p.m. This is back in Rockhampton. So Tewksbury filled out at post office. So he's at the post office again at 4:51. It's to Christopher. Please retain this telegram for future reference. I want this on record. Quote, you will regret this. Unquote. All right. So let's just take a note of this time. So again, he's at Rockhampton Post Office at 4:51 p.m. All right. Next, we have this note paper and then some pages from books. This must be from the library. I'm not sure if this is going to be the most useful yet to me. I kind of need to know more about what happened, like the actual details, and then probably the witness statements as well. I don't even know what time it happened. So I think I'm going to go to the statements first. So first is a copy of this police document, and this is by Detective Michael Fitch. So this is his statement. And then there's a note here, probably by, I forgot the great-grandson's name, Rick. So this is probably by Rick Fitch. Hopefully I can read it because my scans were not that great. My great-grandfather's notes. This is a carbon copy. The whereabouts of the original are unknown, probably somewhere in the NYPF archives. Annoyingly, not all of the statements are here. I only have carbon copies of a sheet of a select few. Date, July 4th, 1927. Police Department, Suffolk County Police Force. Report on the death of Astrid Pelham. Detective Michael Fitch. We drove off from the station as soon as we got his call shortly after 5 p.m. Okay, so now we have a time frame. The drive is normally about 10 minutes, but we drove faster than normally allowed as it was an emergency. When we arrived at Merivale Manor, the chief had already apprehended Clarence Merivale IV as the main suspect due to his proximity to the crime scene at the time Pelham fell, and as such had detained him in the third floor library. The chief gave me a statement before handing the case over to me, since he had been a witness to the death of Miss Pelham. Oh, the chief was there? I made sure to get his statements, he attached. We also interviewed all of the party guests, and I can verify that the chief's assertion that there were only 6 people missing when Pelham fell was the truth, as we were able to confirm the location of all the guests and staff at the time of Pelham's death, bar those he mentioned in his statement. Okay, so there's 6 people unaccounted for. First thing of note was a trail of muddy footprints. I made a note of their path through the house. I was also able to identify a partial shoe print that led from the 3rd floor to the guest bedroom on the east wing. Someone had clearly been up there and trodden in the mud on the landing before walking it down the stairs. Sorry, this handwriting is hard to read. Bear with me. Unfortunately, the quality of the print was insufficient to match it to a shoe. Since the chief had kept Clarence IV detained in the library, I was able to ask him some questions. He said the library was often his place of refuge when he wanted to be alone. He wasn't taking Astrid's breakup well and needed time alone to compose himself. Astrid came up to the 3rd floor to talk things over, but when he said he wanted to be alone, she left. Okay, so they were together, but they broke up. We searched Astrid's room for any clues. We took her belongings in as evidence, including clothes, cosmetics, a brand new copy of Henry's Spottiswoode at Sea by Howard Francis, which curiously was found open at page 48 with scatterings of small ink dots across the pages. Okay, I'm guessing that's going to be one of the documents that we see. And some stationery. We also found the 5 other people who weren't present and questioned them as well. They all gave alibis for where they were at 5 o'clock, including in their statements. Okay, so that was Detective Michael Fitch's statement. Let's add some notes. So I'm just going to put time of death 5 p.m. for Astrid. I wanted to check really quick who broke up with who. It just says he wasn't taking Astrid's breakup well. So I'm guessing Astrid broke up with him, right? So we have Astrid who broke up with him and that he was on the 3rd floor library. So next we have the police chief's statement, who was there and he witnessed the death. So Chief Horace Fletcher, written down by Detective Michael Fitch. At around 5 o'clock, we were gathering in the courtyard to have a photo taken before it got dark. It was to be a grand photo with everyone in it, even the housekeeping staff. We wanted everyone to be there, so we made note of who was missing. Those people were Clarence Merivale Jr. and Sr., Astrid Pelham, her friend Mark Tewksbury, and Dr. Bernard Ross. Margaret Merivale went into the house to see if she could find the missing people shortly before the fountain began its routine to mark the hour. The doors were open so we could hear the grandfather clock chime. Sorry, this is so hard to read. As well as the clack of billiard balls. Okay, someone playing billiards. Just as Mr. Lodge was going to see who it was playing and get them to come outside, the fountain display came to a finish, and that's when Astrid fell onto Neptune's trident. All right, so maybe figure out who's playing billiards. They have an alibi. We don't know who Mr. Lodge is. I gotta keep track of these names that are coming up. As soon as I saw Astrid fall, I ran straight upstairs, my mind jumping to the possibility that she had been pushed, and that if I ran straight there, I could apprehend the murderer before they had a chance to escape. When Astrid fell, I was just outside the courtyard door that was closest to the foot of the stairs, so within a second or two, I was beginning my ascent. As I ran up to the first set of stairs, I kept watch over the next set of stairs that run from floor 2 to floor 3, which are fully visible from the ground floor due to the open layout of the hallway. I can confirm that no one came down these stairs. When I reached the top floor, I attempted to access the study, but it had been wedged shut from the inside. I hovered in the hallway for a second, deciding what to do, and poked my head in the library to ensure that no one was hiding in there. That's when I found Clarence IV, sitting in the back corner of the library sulking. I instructed him to stay where he was while I ran back across to the door of the study. That's when Clarence Sr. came up the stairs to offer assistance. Together we barged through the door, breaking the tilted chair that had been propped up against the door as a wedge. To my disbelief, nobody was in the study or on the balcony. Since Clarence IV was closest to the scene of the crime, I headed back to the library to question him. At the time, he had bare feet with the bottom of his pants dripping with wet mud. Okay, that's very important information there. My initial hunch is that because they're saying no one was running down from floor 3 to floor 2, and that I've seen that there's some floor plans of the house, there must be like some secret passages or something. But we'll see. So far, we see Clarence Sr. coming up the stairs to offer assistance. And then, of course, we have a description of what Clarence IV looked like, bare feet and the bottom of his pants dripping with wet mud. So I'm definitely going to write these details down. So I'll take notes here, but I'm also going to put it in the other place. So we keep saying Clarence Sr., but I think that's referring to Clarence III. So I'm just noting that while the chief was on the third floor, I think it was while he was trying to budge open the study, Clarence came running up the stairs to meet him. And I believe he's a suspect because he was missing during the photo. For Margaret, it just mentioned that she went inside to look for someone, right? For the missing people. Let me go back and check that out. So the missing people, Clarence Jr. and Sr., Astrid, Mark, Bernard Ross, and then period. Is that, how many was it? I thought it said 6 people. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who's the 6th person missing? They said there was 6 people, right? I also forgot to take a note of this. I'm just gonna write book. I can look right here. Oh, also that there was muddy footprints. I forgot about that important detail. So I think there was another note that shows where the muddy footprints are. We will get to that eventually. But also there was a partial shoe print, and it was on the 3rd floor to the guest bedroom, east wing. Okay, so it was right here where they say that there were only 6 people missing when Pelham fell. But on this statement, it only lists 5 people. Clarence Jr. and Sr., so that's 2, Astrid is 3, her friend Mark, 4, and Dr. Bernard, 5. And it says Margaret went into the house to see if she could find the missing people shortly before the fountain began. Oh, okay, so I guess when Margaret goes in, she is not accounted for when Astrid falls. So I guess that does make her a suspect still. I was trying to clear her, but I guess it's too soon to do that. Actually, let me make some more notes for these important things, like that we're looking for someone who's playing billiards. So I'm just going to add a miscellaneous section here that someone was playing billiards. That could be someone's alibi. All right, and on to the next statement. This is by Clarence Merivale Sr. I must confess that I was compelled to momentarily excuse myself from the gathering to attend to a pressing matter of business. One should, of course, refrain from toiling on such an auspicious occasion as our beloved nation's Independence Day. Yet a labor unrest was brewing at one of our factories that I simply could not ignore. And we did read that in the newspaper. It was about that he let go 5 people. Upon completion of my obligations, I discerned an alarming commotion emanated from the library, prompting me to investigate its source. So I guess this is when he runs up the stairs to meet the chief. To my dismay, I discovered the esteemed Dr. Ross therein, reeking of alcohol, having inadvertently toppled a box of wax cylinders while trying to take one. The learned gentleman appeared to be in a most irate disposition, though the catalyst for his anger eluded me, despite my attempts at discourse. It was uncertain whether his inebriation or his anger was the cause of his confusion. Basically, was he angry or was he drunk? Or both? Why can't he just be both? My inquiry was unexpectedly interrupted by the sudden arrival of my son, Clark, is that the chief? And Miss Pelham, who were at the time arguing in the study. No, wait, who's Clark? Clark exited the study and came into the library. Sensing the situation, Dr. Ross made an exit, leaving me to offer solace to Clark. Who's Clark? Is Clark the son? I remained in Clark's company for a duration of 5 minutes or so before proceeding down to the 2nd floor, where I encountered my wife, who implored my assistance in locating the elusive Mr. Tewksbury. I knocked on the door of the bedroom where he was staying in the southwest bedroom, but there was no answer. I entered and even went onto the bedroom's balcony to see if he was there, but to no avail. The gentleman has a reputation for being sneaky. As I departed Mr. Tewksbury's quarters, Chief Fletcher sprinted past me, ascending the staircase with great haste. So did the chief just not see him? Curiosity piqued, and I shadowed his progress, hoping to be of some aid. Chief Fletcher informed me of what had happened, and I assisted him in breaching the entrance to the study. The study door does not have a lock on it, but it was obstructed by a chair that Miss Pelham had apparently wedged beneath the handle before making her ill-fated exit from the balcony. How does he know that? How does he know that it was Pelham who put it there? Chief Fletcher summoned the officers from the local station using my office telephone. Meanwhile, I excused myself to tend to my guests, who were all rather distressed by what they'd just seen. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. We don't know if he's telling the truth or not. Nonetheless, we will mark everything that he just said. So I think we can safely assume he wasn't playing billiards. He seemed pretty busy. So first he hears a commotion in the library. I'm guessing this is... Oh, actually, it's with Dr. Ross. So he does say, my son Clark. So I'm guessing he calls Clarence IV Clark. So they're in the library, and then Clark and Astrid enter. Then Dr. Ross makes an exit. He stays there. Doesn't say what Astrid does. Oh, sorry, they were in the study. Okay, let me read this sentence again. My inquiry was unexpectedly interrupted by the sudden arrival of my son and Miss Pelham, who were, at the time, arguing in the study. So they were arguing in the study, but then they go to the library? So Clark exited the study. Oh, wait, sorry. Clark exited the study and came into the library. So Astrid, that's why he thinks Astrid put the chair. Okay. This was a lot to unpack. I think it does line up why he's on the second floor and then sees the chief and then runs up to join him. I don't know where he starts off, but he hears something in the library. It's Dr. Ross. He's angry and he's drunk. And then while there, they hear Clark and Astrid arguing in the study. Clark leaves and goes into the library, and then Dr. Ross leaves them. Clark, he stays with Clark, his son, and then heads down to the second floor where he bumps into his wife, who's looking for Tewksbury. They go to look for Tewksbury in his room. He's not there. They check the balcony, nothing. So they go back and he sees the chief run up the stairs. So he joins him. Okay. Whew. All right. If we're going to need to come back to this, I know where to go. I'm not going to bother putting it in the other section. For now, I'm just going to move on. Okay, we have our last statement, and it's by Margaret. Before we were due to take the photo, I went in to find some of the people who weren't there. Chief among the missing people were my husband and my son, with Mr. Tewksbury, Dr. Ross, and the girl Pelham also absent. Perhaps I must admit that I only begrudgingly went looking for her as not to be disrespectful towards the deceased, but I didn't much care for Miss Pelham. However, Clark was clearly fond of her in a romantic way, so I thought I'd try and put that all aside. Also, I'm not a fan of rewriting history, so I thought it would be reporting the party incorrectly to have her missing from the photo. Either way, may God rest her soul. I went off to round up the missing party members. I found Clarence on the second floor landing. He had just been in the library comforting Clark over some matters. While we waited for Clark to gather his composure, the two of us went about looking for the other three. I went to the bedroom Dr. Ross was staying in to look for him there, whilst Clarence went to look for Mr. Tewksbury in the bedroom we'd given him. I was wondering if they went together to see Tewksbury, so this confirms that they split up. I had just found Dr. Ross when Chief Fletcher came rushing up the stairs. He was in such a hurry, I wasn't able to catch what was going on. I went downstairs to find many of our guests gathering in the hall. I was unsure as to why, but I understand now it was to get away from the awful sight of the fountain, or on the fountain. Indeed, I could tell from their faces that something awful had happened. My friend Mildred was the first to inform me as to what had happened. Clarence and I convened and helped bring order to the guests. We made sure nobody left in case they were useful to the police investigation, and also made sure adequate food and drinks were provided. Okay, so I think the only thing I can tell here is that they split up. So when she says I had just found Dr. Ross, I'm assuming it's in his room. So that means Dr. Ross went straight to his room. Okay, well, I think this is all very important information. We will probably understand more once we see the layout of the house. So for now, let's move on. So now that we've gone through the statements and they're talking about all these rooms and stairs, I'm more interested about the layout of this house. Also the mention of the muddy footprints. So we do have a note of the direction of the muddy footprints. Is this from outside? And then it goes to the stairs. It goes on to the second floor, straight to the third floor. And then from here, it goes into this room and then out here. And then we have a diagram of footprints. Oh, there is a missing toe. Okay, so we are looking for someone who's missing a left toe. Okay, that is a very important detail. And then we will come back to this to figure out, which room this is and where this goes also. So let's move on. So this next one, I'm not sure you can tell here, but it's a booklet and we'll just go through each page. So first we have an image of the manor from the outside. There's no statue here. Is it on the back? Then the first page, welcome to Merivale Manor. We hope you enjoy your visit here today. We have prepared this booklet to provide you with some history on the house. Merivale Manor was built in 1854 next to Lake Portance in Rockhampton, a village on New York's Long Island. Clarence Merivale I had it constructed as his country estate, and it remained in the possession of the Merivale family until Margaret Merivale, widow of Clarence III, died in 1958. So she dies in 1958. In her will, she donated the house to the New York State Historical Protection Society, which continues to preserve the house. We also see that Clarence III died in 1933, which is only 6 years after Astrid's death. All right, so maybe I will read this. I'll just try to go by really quickly. Introduction. For the most part, the house stands today exactly how it was built, but there have been a few changes made that we will point out to you along your tour. Okay, I think that will be important because we need to know how it was back in 1927. The first one being the reception area you would have just visited. This was built in 1919, originally a garage to house Clarence III's automobile. This also necessitated a cement driveway to be paved. By the garage door, a footprint can be found that Clarence IV, okay, a footprint, is it missing a toe? So he cheekily stamped into the wet cement. We know it was him because the prints only have 9 toes. All right, so muddy pants, muddy footprints. It's definitely his. As a boy, Clarence IV was playing on the frozen Lake Portance one winter when he fell through the ice and had to have the little toe of his left foot amputated. Wait, little toe? I need to check that footprint again. Much to the dismay of his mother, who from then on insisted that Clarence was to wear shoes around the house to hide his ghastly feet. Yeah, he was found barefoot though, but if he's told to wear shoes around the house, why would he be walking around barefoot? An urban myth persists that Merivale Manor was built on the site that Merivale I dueled and killed his political rival Cornelius van Dorenborg. Okay, could this be a descendant? Wait, no, Astrid is the victim, not a Merivale. Legend has it that Van Dorenborg challenged Merivale to a duel after Merivale besmirched his political abilities. However, since dueling had long since been outlawed in New York State, Merivale and Van Dorenborg had to meet in secret to have their duel. The urban myth of this alleged duel continues to persist despite there being no historical evidence for it happening. While it is true Merivale and Van Dorenborg were fierce rivals, and that Van Dorenborg disappeared not long before construction of Merivale Manor began, most historians believe that claims of a fatal duel were started by Merivale himself, after Van Dorenborg disappeared in order to create an air of mystique and danger around himself. This certainly fits with Merivale's reputation as an eccentric. It is said he deliberately had the main portion of the house designed to look like the letter C for Clarence from above. As you approach the entrance, be sure to take a moment to appreciate the stunning green patina that adorn the copper downspouts that run past the bedroom balconies. Oh, run down? Does that mean you can climb up and down these things? These are a testament to the craftsmanship and attention to detail that went into the construction of this building and serve as a reminder of a time when copper was a symbol of wealth and prosperity. This expense later proved useful when, in his formative years, Clarence II used them to escape the house whenever he'd been grounded, as did both his son and grandson after him. See, you can climb down them. When you're ready, enter the house via the front door into the hall. So if you can climb down, can you climb up? Okay, first floor ground. The hall was a grand space meant to show off the vast interior space of the house. Its wood paneling was a specific request of Clarence I. Now bear left to the second floor and you'll find the ballroom. It is perhaps the grandest room in Merivale Manor and played host to many grand parties, balls, and evening events that the Merivale family threw. The grand piano was one of the first pianos made by Grandeur Pianos. Merivale's claimed that it was the very first, but has since been disproven. Next along the passage is conservatory. Although not typical glass wall conservatory, this room often be awash with color from flowers and all kinds. Many members of the Merivale family went into horticulture and enjoyed being around plants and flowers. Cross the courtyard, and while you do, take a look at the fountain, perhaps the biggest change to Merivale Manor since Clarence's first day. Built in 1900, the fountain depicts Neptune, Roman god of the sea, holding a trident, surrounded by 12 fish who shoot water out of their mouths. In 1926, Clarence III had the mechanism altered so the fish would mark the hours, turning the fountain into a clock. On the hour, the fish would stop spitting, and in turn, each fish would shoot a single jet of water synchronized to the strikes of the grandfather clock in the parlor, with one more fish joining in as the hours progressed. So at 1 o'clock, fish would shoot a jet, at 2 o'clock, would shoot a jet, then fish 2 would shoot, and 3, there's 1, 2, 3, okay. The fish would then shoot one more jet in unison before resuming normal fountain duties. In this fish water clock, the north-facing fish of the fountain was the 12 o'clock and the south is 6. If you time your visit just right, you might see it in action. Okay, is that going to be important? And we know it's at 5 o'clock. The morning room would catch the rays of the morning sun as it rose, and in the summer months would be a lovely place to have breakfast. On Saturdays, Clarence III would often take a cup of coffee and maybe a donut, a favorite treat, whilst looking over the gardens and lake portents. Next along the east wing is the billiards room, so we know it's in the east wing, a place where the men of the Merivale family would entertain friends in a more informal setting. While the billiards table is the main centerpiece, this room was also where cards were played, as well as chess, backgammon, and many more. Billiards was considered a man's game, so women did not go in here, though guests may be pleased to hear this rule is not in place anymore. All right, that's important to know. I should be taking notes, huh? Okay, let me go back to the other page too. So Clark is missing the left little toe. I do want to check that picture really quick. So that does not look like a little toe that's missing. It's the big toe missing, right? So we still have to figure out who's missing a toe. Plus, he's told to wear shoes inside the house, so don't know why he'd be walking around barefoot. But he was found barefoot in the library. We'll see what happened there, maybe. And then here we have the billiards room. It's in the east wing. And I guess women were not allowed back then, so couldn't have been Margaret in there. Also, we don't have much information on that racing rival. I already forgot her name. It doesn't even mention that she was there, right? Because when they list the people missing from the photo, they don't mention her name. What is her name? Frances Manx. We haven't seen this name pop up. I wonder why. Unless when it says her friend, it's not talking about Mark. It means Astrid's friend. So maybe that's what was confusing me. So if I go back to this list, it says Astrid Pelham, her friend, comma, and then Mark. So maybe her friend is referring to Frances. Okay, back to where we left off. The parlor was where the Merivales entertained guests and held daytime functions. It was also a place to relax and unwind when they were by themselves. Many of the paintings and are works commissioned by the Merivale family, though when cameras were introduced, the Merivales were keen to put photos up to show they could afford to use this latest piece of technology. Perhaps the most striking piece of furniture in the parlor is the grandfather clock, which originally belonged to Margaret Merivale's father. Now take the main stairs up to the second floor. I'm guessing this is more of a recent photo here. Okay, and we have our first floor plan of the first floor. So where are the stairs? The stairs are here. And is this where the muddy footprints were? Let's see, on the first floor, it looks like this, and it goes to the stairs. So maybe it's the other way around. Maybe I'll take a copy of this. So we need to figure out where this is, and it must be from here then, right? No, because you have to go through the parlor. So my guess, okay, if I flip this around, does it make sense then? So you come up from where? Wait, no. If you come from outside, you go into the parlor, and then you go upstairs here. Does that make sense? Doesn't really make sense, but that's the only place that has a single staircase. But this layout looks really weird. Where is this? Okay, I don't know. We'll try to figure this out later. But this must be the tour. You go look here, you look here, you go there. Billiards rooms over here. Okay, let's move on. Second floor. Turn to the left on the landing and you'll come to the master bedroom. Befitting its status as a master bedroom is the largest bedroom in the house and the only one with a walk-in wardrobe. Being in the east wing of the house, it would get the morning sun as it rose, and more powerful incentive to rise out of bed in the morning than any alarm clock. The opposite room in the west wing is the second bedroom, which was reserved for the firstborn son, the next Clarence in line. Though not as grand as the master bedroom, it does offer the same majestic view over the lake as the master. While all of the remaining bedrooms were built so that all of Clarence's first children could each have a bedroom, when the house fell into the hands of Clarence III, they became guest bedrooms. Margaret Merivale always referred to them as the east, west, and southwest bedrooms. But due to the distinct color of each room's wallpaper, they unofficially picked up the monikers of the mint, rose, and lavender bedrooms respectively. While walking about on the second floor landing, keep an eye out between the doors to the rose and lavender bedrooms. If you look close enough, you'll see the door to the servants' passage, cunningly disguised as part of the wall. Secret passage. When the house was built, it was standard to make the presence of the house staff as minimal as possible, even though everyone in the house knew the servants' passage was there. It allowed them to pretend that it wasn't. I don't know if this picture is important, so I'm not going to cover it up, but we have the servants' passage between the rose and lavender. So that is going to be, which one? Let's see, mint, rose, lavender, so west and southwest. Continue around to the sitting room. This was a more private living space than the parlor, which was often used by guests staying at Merivale Manor. However, when the Merivale family purchased a television set in 1941, the sitting room became TV room because such a modern piece of technology as it was at the time wouldn't have fitted in with the traditional decor of the parlor. While initially scornful of it, after Clarence IV died, Margaret would often spend many hours a day watching. Wait, Margaret outlived Clarence IV? That's her son, right? Apparently, she was a big fan of the panel game show What's My Line? I don't know how relevant this is to the case, but I guess Clark died before Margaret. Have a look in the mint bedroom before heading up to the third floor. Then we have our second floor plan. Guess we're mostly interested in the east wing. That is where the mint bedroom is. Actually, no, between the rose and lavender, there is this passageway to the kitchen, but that's on the west side. Okay, let's look at the muddy footprints for the second floor. Still not sure about the first floor, but if we try to place this one, it has to be here in the middle because that's the only place with two staircases. So now we know that they went on this staircase. So if we go back here, we know that this staircase is this one. Let's flip this back around. So if we know it's here, we put this down here. Does this mean that it came from this gift shop or whatever this gift shop used to be? Or here in this walkway? Okay, I think that's it. So it's from here outside and then it goes all the way to the stairs. Then they go up the stairs, they go around this, and then they go to this stairs. Now on to the third floor. The library contains the Merivale's vast collection of books. Clarence I was an avid bibliophile, a passion which he passed down through the generations. Clarence's first wishes with the library was that all the walls would be dedicated to bookshelves, not even allowing the architect space for windows. As such, it was decided that instead of windows, the room would have skylights to allow natural light in. As many of the items in the library are very old and fragile, we respectfully ask that guests refrain from handling the books. Please do not take them off the shelves. The study was the heart of the Merivale Industries business empire, where the generations of Merivales conducted their business when not in the Manhattan office. As such, it was at one point home to the only telephone in the house, so Clarence could stay in contact with the Manhattan office even when he was away. It is said that it was the Merivale's strongest desire to have a telephone connection that brought telephone lines to Rockhampton, as the telephone company did not consider Rockhampton a priority town until the Merivale's incessant badgering caused them to give in. Nestled at the top of the house, the study provides a peaceful haven free from any potential distractions. Although it doesn't feature windows, the door leading to the mansion's largest balcony provides access to an unparalleled view of the picturesque manor grounds and Lake Portents, which is truly breathtaking. When you've finished having a look around, return down the stairs to the second floor, and from there go through the door to the East Wing servant passage, which will take you down to the basement. Again, another servant's passage. Also, I think the skylights might be something significant. Okay, let's see this footprint map again. So here we can see that it goes up into the study, goes out, and then into the library corner. That does line up with Clark though. I remember he was like in the corner, right? But let me see where this secret passage is. Return down the stairs to the second floor, and from there go through the door to the East Wing servants passage. Oh no, they're saying on the second floor. And then we have the basement. So how do you get here? The basement was where the Merivale staff lived and worked. Many mansions of the time were built in such a fashion to keep the staff as invisible as possible, which often meant having them live in the basement as if they weren't part of the house at all. While it may sound callous by today's standards, the Merivales were very respectful and kind to their staff. They looked after their staff and made sure they were as comfortable as possible. Indeed, the servants' quarter at Merivale Manor were some of the finest in the state, and the staff were fiercely loyal to the family. The butler, as head of the household staff, was entitled to his own quarters as opposed to the other staff who had to share. Similarly, the housekeeper was the highest ranked member of the female staff and, as such, was also entitled to her own room. Past the living and working quarters of the servants is the food stores. Merivale Manor was built long before refrigerators were invented, so these cool underground spaces were where root vegetables were kept to keep them fresh. As a well-to-do family, the Merivales, of course, had an amply stocked wine cellar. Clarence II is said to have been an avid oenophile who often hosted wine tasting parties at Merivale Manor, though the rest of the family also enjoyed a glass. Continue up the stairs back to the first floor. So I don't know, we don't have any muddy prints in the basement, so we'll see if this is important. Okay, so we're back on the first floor. Coming up the stairs, you'll find your way to the kitchen. Kitchen is often bustling with activity as the Merivales employed a whole army of cooks to prepare their 3 meals a day. The cooks would often see action preparing food for the many dinner parties and banquets that the Merivales held. The kitchen was certainly large enough to cope, though when preparing a large amount of food for a large number of people, it could often become very bustling indeed. Like someone could slip through easily. Make sure to take a look at the scullery before heading on. This is where crockery and silverware were kept, as well as a place where all the washing up was done. This was all in the days before dishwashers, of course, so it was a servant's responsibility to clean every single plate, pot, and pan by hand. Pass through to the dining room. Like the ballroom and the parlor, it's again a lavishly decorated room with many pieces of artwork on display. Whenever the Merivales had a formal dinner, they liked to make sure that the space their guests were eating in was just as much a feast of the eyes while they waited for the feast for their stomach. The artwork of Clarence I was painted in 1862 by Nathaniel Green, though it is believed not to be fully accurate to how Clarence I would have looked in those days, Clarence I being a rather vain fellow. Pass through the hall, past the front door, to the passage along the front wall of the house, East Wing. You'll pass a cloakroom and gun room. As was common for well-to-do families at the time, the Merivales frequently held hunts, and all the generations of the Merivale family were keen collectors of firearms. While some of the collection was sold by Margaret in the 1950s, some of the Merivale collection was kept and is on display behind glass for you to view. At the end of this passage, you'll come to the walkway that leads to the stable. Originally vital for transportation when the house was built, the horses became less vital when Clarence III bought his automobile, though all the generations were keen riders, both as a pastime and for taking part in hunts. The stable has since been converted into our cafe and gift shop. So that is where the path begins. I figured because it said gift shop, it must have been something else back then, and now we know that is a stable, and that is most likely where this mud originated from. But we'll see. So this gift shop allowing guests some refreshments after touring the house. Make sure you don't leave without purchasing a souvenir of your visit for yourself or a friend or family member. We also stock many tasty locally produced food and drink items. Once you have treated yourself to some food and drink, please feel free to further explore the grounds. Okay, let's take a note really quick. I think I should put it here. I'll just put stable for now. So we know it starts here. Well, actually, whatever this path is, because this looks like an opening right here, it comes in from here, but it is in the area of this gift shop. So maybe this used to be all a stable here. I think that's what they're alluding to. Oh, okay. So we have a map again of the first floor. This is just the path of the tour. But yeah, there's a cloakroom, gun room, and the gift shop. And then we do see that the fountain is back here, which is why we didn't see it at the front of the house. But now you can see in the back of the house. So this is the balcony and the study is right here. So she was in the study and then fell from here. So my question now is, who can access this balcony? I think from either of these rooms, you can climb up into this roof and then you can come here. Because they mentioned something about the copper pieces and that you can climb down. So certainly you should be able to climb up as well. So whoever is on the second floor in one of these rooms is a suspect. So I think we need to figure out who are in these rooms. If we go back to the second floor plan, we see the master bedroom and Clarence's bedroom. But also there are 4 balconies. So we do have the lavender room here and then the sitting room. So we also need to see who is in this lavender room. Also, do we know what is north and south? So east is the mint room. So let's see where that is. So this is east and this is west. So we're going to have to figure out who's staying in which room, right? So he went to look for Tewksbury in the southwest bedroom. Does it say where the doctor was? It just says, I went to the bedroom Dr. Ross was staying in. Doesn't give any directions. But southwest is lavender. So when they went to go looking for him in here and even checking the balcony, they didn't see him anywhere. Tewksbury also has some alibis because he was in the post office, but we'll see how that lines up. So for the doctor, that leaves us with either the rose or the mint room, but neither of them have balcony access. Also said that Margaret found him in the bedroom. So he went to the bedroom from the library and then, I don't know, would he have enough time to do anything? If the chief is running up these stairs, I mean, there is this stairs on the side here. I'm wondering what the muddy footprints have to do with it though, because if it's not Clark, but it ends up being in the library, what does that mean? Because are they trying to confuse us with the whole like missing toe thing, right? It's the wrong toe that's missing. I think we're just going to keep moving on. So there was also this map, which kind of helps me because I did want to find out how far it was to the post office. So we can see the post office is over here and the manor is over here. He would have to go all the way down this road, drive here, and then go up here. Do we even know if, Tewksbury was driving? And I don't really see a scale either. So maybe we'll have to come back to this. Oh, wait, they did mention something about driving from the police station to the manor. So let me go back there. So the drive is normally about 10 minutes, but we drove faster than normally allowed as it was an emergency. So it normally takes 10 minutes to go from the police station to the manor. So I'm just going to say it's a 10-minute drive from the post office to the manor because it's right next to the station. So if Tewksbury is at the post office at 4:51 and it takes 10 minutes to drive back, he would barely be back at 5:01. So I think this pretty much confirms his alibi. Because even if he made it back to the manor, everyone would have been there and saw him. He would have to run past everybody and then straight up to the study. I just don't think it's possible for him. Even if he somehow used secret passages, everyone would have saw him. For Astrid, she was in the study, right? So she was in the study arguing with Clark, and then I think she fell from the balcony, right? That's connected to the study. All right, so next I think I am going to go through these book pages. Actually, I'm taking a glance at this. I don't know now that I have some more information if there's something to note. So this is from the back. We can see the statue. We can see all the balconies. This must be that copper thing that you can climb up and down. There's a door here that goes into the study. So this is the test shot where they were going to take the group photo, right? I'm trying to see what else there would be to note. Not too sure. Let's just move on. Okay, so we have a page. This was front and back, a guide to the spectral legends of New York State. I think this was one of the references in the first letter we read. So is it haunted? Located in the town of Rockhampton next to Lake Portance of Long Island, Merivale Manor was built in 1854 for Clarence Merivale and his family. Merivale picked the spot because that's where he killed Cornelius van Dorenborg in a duel a month before construction of the manor started. It is believed this was Merivale's way of gloating over van Dorenborg's defeat, and such was Merivale's desire to boast of his victory over van Dorenborg that he had his body paved into the foundation of Merivale Manor's cellar during construction. There's a lot of detail about this duel. I wonder if it's important. This explains why, to this day, nobody has ever found the remains of Van Dorenborg despite intensive searches. Even now, the owners of Merivale Manor have refused to allow excavation of the Merivale cellar to look for the remains of Van Dorenborg, despite reports of bone fragments found in that cellar, almost as if they had something to hide. Some have pointed out that Van Dorenborg was one of the finest marksmen around at the time and couldn't have fallen to Merivale, who had little experience with firearms. However, this only furthers the explanation as to why Merivale would want to boast of his victory over Van Dorenborg. As such, humiliated in death and denied the dignity of a proper burial, Van Dorenborg was left a vengeful spirit, forever cursed to wander the halls of Merivale Manor, whereupon he took his revenge on Merivale and his descendants. There were many reports during the first half of the 20th century of unearthly sounds coming from Merivale Manor. Many of the visitors complained of beastly howls in the middle of the night. Many of the visitors complained of beastly howls in the middle of the night. In a letter to her sister, Patricia Shelby wrote of her time as a guest of the Merivales. Merivale Manor is a most splendid house, and the bedroom they gave me offered the most brilliant views over the woods and lake, though I must admit to be awakened during my sleep by a mysterious call that echoed through the halls, apparently without source. It didn't last long, but it gave me a nasty scare, so much so I made sure my door was locked just in case there was something frightful in Merivale Manor. Silly, I know, but you know how one's imagination can run away with oneself during the dead of night. When I breakfasted with the Merivales the next morning, I raised a noise. All they could offer by way of an explanation was the wind. I must say, I don't buy that explanation one bit. There isn't a wind on earth that could blow with such fury. Indeed, many have theorized that Astrid Pelham's death in 1927 was a result of her trying to escape the ghost, having been cornered on the third-floor balcony. Since the death of Margaret Merivale in 1958 and the subsequent passing of the house into the hands of the New York State Historical Protection Society, reports of it being haunted have decreased. It could be that, with the Merivale line having ended with the death of Clarence Merivale IV in 1944 during the Battle of the Bulge. Okay, so we have the year... Oh no, wait. Sorry. We're looking for the year of Dredge Point, not Bulge. The ghost of Van Dorenborg has no cause to haunt the house anymore. It's certainly possible, but in this expert's opinion, the only way to definitively end the haunting of Merivale Manor is to exhume Van Dorenborg's remains from the cellar and give him a proper, decent burial in consecrated ground. Only then will Van Dorenborg's spirit truly achieve peace and be able to pass into the next life. I don't know if any of this really helps. Let's just move on for now. We have another excerpt from Egyptomania. So this is a picture we saw the Dr. Ross. Frenzy that soon spread to other nations. America in particular had a sudden surge in interest in ancient Egypt. The first American archaeologist to get an expedition organized was Dr. Bernard Ross. A professor at Columbia University, Ross had been trying to organize an expedition for years before, but the university's archaeology department had been more focused on sending expeditions to ancient Central American civilizations. However, once Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered in 1922, Ross was able to secure funding and made his first trip to, I'm not even going to read that, in 1923. In late 1925, Ross made his second trip, this time bringing with him cameraman Leslie Morris to document the trip. Ross had been inspired by the popularity of Herbert Ponting's film The Great White Silence, chronicling Robert Scott's Terra Nova expedition to Antarctica, and believed a similar film about Egypt would also prove popular. Ross's expedition was a success, and his book Beneath the Valley of the Kings lent him much credibility, to the point where he was considered the leading Egyptologist in America at the time. Ross took a sabbatical from Columbia and toured the country delivering his lecture accompanied by Morris's film. However, these days, Ross has become somewhat infamous for his role in the Curse of the Pharaoh's myth. While it is recognized that Ross didn't actually start the legend, it is accepted that he did a lot to cultivate it. After Lord Carnarvon died, subsequently to entering Tutankhamun's tomb, now known to have been the result of blood poisoning from an infected mosquito bite, Ross played up the fact that the tombs were allegedly haunted. After returning from his 1925 expedition, Ross is reported to have mentioned dire warnings on the pyramid walls to all those who might enter. Although Ross never said where he saw this warning, and indeed, such a warning does not exist anywhere in any tomb that word. Furthermore, Ross never once made reference to being cursed in any of his books. Accounts from the time state that in his lectures at Columbia, Ross didn't claim to be cursed, but when lecturing to a more populist crowd during his tours, he did hint at the possibility, denying it in such a way as to make people think that his denials were lies. Ross's fellow professor at Columbia, Edmund Cardiff, stated that everyone who knew Bernie knew he was making it up. He liked to tease people, so those who were taking talk of curses seriously had let his jokes fly over their heads. However, not long after the 1925 expedition, Ross began to exhibit strange mood swings, and many attributed it to the Pharaoh's curse. According to reports from the time, he would sometimes become possessed by the spirit of the ancient pharaoh whose tomb he had discovered. When he was under the spirit's control, his demeanor would become considerably nastier, more spiteful, quick-tempered, and aggressive, an aggression which occasionally tipped over into physical violence. That's not good. Okay, so he has this weird physical violent state he gets into. I'm not sure what else to take from that. I thought there was going to be some explanation as to why he would be angry, but I guess this is the explanation. Next, we have a page from the early plays of Mark Tewksbury, and it was greatly anticipated. However, in the lead up to the production of Dust Fair early in the fall of 1927, the MPTC toyed with the idea of getting Astrid Pelham to play the lead role of Kara. Okay, so Dust Play, is this the name of the film, or is this a play? I don't know if it's the same thing. At the time, Pelham was rising in celebrity status as a superstar race winner, and when they found out Tewksbury was to stay as a guest in Merivale Manor at the same time as Pelham, they asked him to run some lines with her to see if it would work. Talk of casting Pelham angered Tewksbury, who did not want the racer in his play and was very vocal in his objections, believing she'd ruin the play and his career with it. However, having recently moved into the newly constructed Newton Theatre with its much greater seating capacity, the company executives wanted a big hit that would fill seats and decided to go ahead with the idea anyway without Tewksbury approval. But Pelham died not long after, and Tewksbury's initial choice for the role, Jane Elm, was cast instead to great acclaim. In an interview in 1974, Tewksbury remarked, "Her death was a tragedy, and may God rest her soul, but it all worked out for the best. We got Jane and my career took off." I mean, yeah, I guess that's a good motive, but we already kind of ruled them out. Looking back now, the decision to even entertain the idea of such stunt casting seems to foreshadow the disagreements Tewksbury would have with the Manhattan Players Theatrical Company that would dog him throughout the 1930s and 40s, though at this point he still managed a genial working relationship with them. As such, Dust Fair marks the highlight of the early canon of Tewksbury's career. The surreal nature that begins to emerge in Act 3 in particular is evocative of similar themes that Tewksbury had. Then it says at the bottom, the events of Pelham's death would later provide the basis for Tewksbury's play Dredge Point. Oh, the year of Dredge Point. Further analysis of which can be found in Mark Tewksbury's Jamaica Years. Okay, so we have years here, but that's not the year for Dredge Point. So we need to find Mark Tewksbury's Jamaica Years, and then maybe that will give us the year for Dredge Point. Okay, so I don't know if it's Dust Fair. I'm just going to write Dust Fair because it says the film Astrid Pelham starred in. Technically, she didn't star in it because she died before she could make it. So I don't think that's it. All right, let's move on. All right, I know I said at the beginning that I might not read all this, so this is definitely going to be one that I just skim over. So this is the collected letters of Francis Parker. And Mark is Mark Tewksbury. Okay, actually, this one's pretty interesting, so I think I am going to read it. Because it looks like Mark wrote something based off of what happened with Astrid. I ruled him out, but what if he slipped in some details, that no one would have known? This is in 1961. Dear Mark, lovely to hear from you. First of all, I feel enough time has passed that I'm comfortable with the idea of such a play, and I'd much rather you wrote it and did it tastefully than some schlock peddler with no connection to Astrid looking for a quick cash-in. I share your hope that if the play is successful, it might reignite public interest enough to have the police reopen the case. So if Mark is hoping that the police reopen the case, we ruled him out. He definitely would not want the case to be reopened if he did it. First of all, I should mention that I wasn't invited to that party, but Astrid rang me up and begged me to come. I think she'd okayed it with Clark, but I doubt she'd asked or even told Clark's parents. I guess in a way I was sort of gate crashing, but I made excuses to myself that it was alright because I was there as support for Astrid. Okay, who is this? Let me see. Francis Parker. So this is Francis, I forgot her other name, but she must have married and became Parker. Manx, right? M-A-N-X. So she was there, because this is the first we're seeing her name pop up, right? We haven't seen her anywhere before. She didn't like those stuck-up old money types and didn't look forward to having to spend a whole evening with them with only Clark for company. It didn't take me long before I was convinced I'd done the right thing. All the guests knew who Astrid was, but you could tell those upper crust types didn't approve of what she did, or at best, treated her like some sort of novelty. Didn't approve of what she did? What did she do? Clark's parents in particular made no effort to hide their disdain. That being said, they weren't the worst. The worst was the creepy archaeologist. The rumors he'd been cursed by the pharaohs or some such nonsense. The public were in the grip of Egyptomania at the time, so much so that they all bought into it. Apparently, it was a Jekyll and Hyde thing, that there was the respectful doctor side of his personality, but when the curse took hold of him, he would become rude, angry, and violent. Well, we saw him hiding in the gardener's shed, and we saw what the real cause of his so-called curse was. Yeah, he just got drunk, right? I think he told everyone it was the curse to obfuscate his alcoholism, since alcohol was illegal in those prohibition days. As he sipped from his secret stash, getting more and more drunk, he started lusting over Astrid, trying to get a date. Apparently, he thought nothing about trying to get a woman young enough to be his daughter to notice him. He tried to impress her, said he'd take her to Egypt with him and all that. Well, Astrid was having none of it. She told that bozo to get lost. She had to say it several times before he got the message, but when she said she'd revealed his drinking habits to the police chief who was there, threatening him with scandal and expulsion from his professorship, he bitterly backed off, scurrying away into the house with his tail between his legs. Okay, that might make him a little upset with her. Of course, it was during the party that Astrid and Clark broke off their relationship. I don't think she had intended it that way, but they'd gone out on a boat ride on the lake together, and I guess it just came out that she wasn't happy being with him. I was sitting with a friend of Clark's called Matthew in the gazebo at the time. We saw them row back. Clark stormed off into the house, and Matthew followed, while Astrid and I stayed back. Matthew came back and said Clark just needed to cool off, but Astrid went in to try to mend things. Soon after that, there was going to be a grand picture taken of all the guests, except Margaret Merivale came up to me and told me that, since I hadn't been properly invited, I wasn't permitted to be in the photo. I'm guessing it wouldn't have been a problem if I was the sort of proper woman they approved of. I decided to go into the billiards room and knock a few balls around until they were done. Okay, so I thought it wasn't going to be a woman. I guess it was a woman, but no one was around anyway, so. Again, not a thing a proper woman should be doing in those days, but by that point I felt I had already wound them up enough. Why bother worrying what they thought? I suppose in some respects they did me a favor by keeping me out of that courtyard. I didn't see Astrid fall, but when I heard the commotion outside, I went to see what was happening. I can still see the image in my head, clear as yesterday. The points of Neptune's trident sticking out of Astrid's neck, the last spasms of life before she went limp. Well, that's all I remember clearly. After that, it's all a bit of a blur. Hope that helps you with your play. Just let it be known I don't have any time for the infamous theory that Astrid fell after being spooked by a ghost. There's no such thing. Next time you're in New York, give me a ring. Brett and I would love to see you again. Okay, well, I think we can clear Francis now. So we still don't know who's the bloody footprints. And as far as the password, we still need to find out all three things. We don't know the film that Astrid was in. We don't know animals Eustace's friend looked after. We haven't even seen Eustace's name come up. And then Year of Dredge Point. So we know Dredge Point is some sort of play or movie, but we don't know the year yet. Next, we have another book here, a photocopy of the book my great-grandfather mentioned in his notes. This is a 1927 edition too. This is from Rick Fitch. You know, Henry, it's most peculiar the manner in which he walks. I bet you he injured his leg somehow. Maybe he fell in the river and the current dragged him over some jagged rocks. He sighed. My daughter and this man, he's so rotten. She deserves someone better. I know it sounds strange, but Eustace... Okay, so we're looking for the animals. Eustace realized Henry wasn't particularly interested in his consternations. Rather, Henry's attention was solely reserved for the family of sparrows who'd had the misfortune of having their nest blown out of their tree in a storm recently. Okay, so I think it's sparrows. I'm just gonna browse over this. I don't know if any of this is really important. I don't really see anything else. You guys can pause it if you want to read it. I think we just know that the animals are sparrows. All right, let's move on. So we pretty much went through all of it. Now we just have these last three articles here. So this is from Modernist Monthly. Pelham Death 50 Years On. Interview with Matthew Lodge. So Matthew is the friend, and we did see the name Lodge. Oh, that was in one of the statements. Yeah, this might be important because he's giving his account of what happened. Astrid Pelham's death lingers on in the public consciousness as one of the most high-profile deaths to have ever occurred. To this day, people speculate as to whether the official verdict of suicide is true or not. As July 4th this year will mark half a century since Pelham's death, we decided to sit down with one of the people who was there, one of Clarence Merivale IV's closest friends, Matthew Lodge. Back then, Lodge was a fellow student of Clarence's, or Clark as he was known to his friends. Since then, he worked in advertising before retiring in 1963. Now aged 74, we caught up with Mr. Lodge to ask about his friend and his memories of that day. How did you first meet Clarence Merivale? I first met Clark when we shared a dorm at Columbia. He had a far more outgoing personality than me. He enjoyed being in a vibrant city. He liked rubbing shoulders with big names. For instance, he had heard good things about a debut playwright named Mark Tewksbury, so we went to see a play he had written called Silver Switchback. It had been well reviewed and all the papers noted, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm gonna just glance over this. Okay, so they became friends. Was it the same with Astrid? Oh, definitely. She did a race at a fairground in Queens where she demonstrated her skills. She wasn't super famous before the show, but afterward the buzz around her just grew and grew. It was a spectacular show. I don't think there was a person in the stands who didn't want to meet Astrid, but only Clark had the particular determination that made things happen. Okay, somehow got Astrid to take notice of him and they were dating. He didn't think Clark was truly in love with her, saw her as a prize. So when she died, they had been dating for less than a year. Okay, finally, the party. School year ended, I returned home and got a telephone call from Clark. He arrived first. He shared a room with Clark because all the spare rooms went to Astrid, Tukes, and Bernard Ross. Ross had just made a big archaeological find in Egypt, so it was another name to show off to everyone. I remember he had a film of his expedition that he showed us. How was it leading up to the party? The parents didn't like Astrid. They wanted her to marry someone more ladylike. The mom would hint other women, so Margaret forbade Clark from seeing her. She was particularly concerned with a scar Astrid had on her face she received during a race in France. A barely visible hairline, but Margaret couldn't understand how Clark could bear to be seen with someone with such a ghastly, quote-unquote, disfigurement. So the party is standard. Let's see. Tukes had a thing for Frances. She ended up married to Brett Parker. So yeah, Astrid broke up with Clark. He took her on the lake. He liked going out on the lake and dipping his bare feet in the water. Okay, so that explains why he was barefoot and why he was wet. He was such in a rush to get away that he leaped straight into the mud and strode straight into the house. I tried to comfort him, but he wanted to be alone. So we know why he was barefoot, and we know why there was mud on his pants. I still think the prints are not his, but we'll see. So did she give a reason? He wasn't on the boat, he didn't hear. Clark told me years later that Astrid didn't think Clark's feelings were genuine, that he loved her celebrity more than her personality. She wasn't keen on the Merivales, and she was worried they might put pressure on her to give up racing. All right, what's your memory? Everyone was gathered in the courtyard for a photo. Everyone was there except Astrid, Clark, Clarence III, Dr. Ross, Tukes, and Francis. Margaret went in to go and find the missing people. While she was gone, the fountain went off to mark 5 o'clock. The doors were open, so we could hear the grandfather clock and see the fishes synchronize their spitting with the chimes. Just as the fishes finished their display, that's when Astrid fell from the balcony, right onto Neptune's trident. And you couldn't see anyone else on the balcony. We were mostly beneath it, and for those who weren't, the angle was so steep they couldn't see up onto it. You'd only be able to see if someone was up there if they were leaning over the front edge, because the side edges of the balcony were joined to the roof of the second floor. I think by the time someone got far back enough, anyone who might have been up there had been gone back inside. Okay, did you stay in contact? I still saw Clark. He wasn't extroverted anymore. He retreated into the house. He had depression. After the war started, we were in different units, so we weren't in contact. So who do you think did it? All I can offer you are guesses, really. I don't think Pelham would have jumped. The gaps between them may have been big enough for a person to slip through, I suppose. But I find it hard to believe someone in that family could be capable. It certainly wasn't a ghost. Next, we have Sports Encyclopedia, Motor Racing, Astrid Pelham. So again, I'm just going to glance through this. You guys can pause if you want to read. Okay, so here's probably what I need to know. So Woods is her manager, tried to push her into other areas of spotlight. In 1927, she starred in Racing Hearts for Fabulous Player Films. There you go. I think that's all I needed. All right, well, let's move on. We have our final document here. The only thing we need left is year of Dredge Point. So this is University of Lower Manhattan, the collection of Dr. Bernard Ross wax cylinder recording. So they mentioned wax cylinders. I guess this was a way for them to record stuff. This wax cylinder was found in the back of a drawer in one of the bedrooms of Merivale Manor after the manor was sold following Margaret Merivale's death in 1958. Initially believed to be from Clarence Merivale III, upon listening it was found to be a recording made by Dr. Bernard Ross, and as such, it was donated to the library to add to our collection of his papers. As his 1927 stay at Merivale Manor was the only time he visited the house in his life, we are almost certain it was recorded then. The recording lasts for 2 minutes and 1 second. At points, another person talks to Dr. Ross. However, their voice is too faint to hear, and as Dr. Ross does not identify them, we have no idea who it was he was talking to. All right, so we have this transcript here. Darn this darned curse. How dare she reject me? Does she not know who I am? So it's talking about Astrid. What have I done? I treated her so well until now. Oh, what have I done? You know what? I'll find someone better than her. Someone who appreciates me for who I am. Yeah, that's it. I'm better off without her. Why am I recording this? Is it even recording? I've never used one of these dictaphones before. These wax cylinders wouldn't last 5 minutes in the heat of Egypt. I'm such an idiot. Perhaps I should lay off the alcohol for the rest of the day. No, it's got nothing to do with alcohol. It's lack of sleep. That darn clock in the parlor below my room has been waking me up every hour of the night. That along with the morning sun waking me so early. I should have demanded a bedroom on the west wing. So we do have the time here. Oh, we don't know what time it starts. Just according to the recording. An unidentified voice speaks, too faint to be heard. Dr. Ross. What? Oh, hello. Unidentified voice. Unintelligible. No, I haven't. Sorry. Unintelligible? No, nothing important. All right, I'm almost finished. I'll be down shortly. Oh, no bother at all. I rather like it. All right, anyway, I guess I better wrap this up as I am needed elsewhere. Now, what was I saying? Balderdash. I've lost my train of thought. Okay, so is this when Margaret finds him in his room and she's telling him like, come on, let's go take a photo. All we know is that this conversation lasts for 2 minutes and 1 second. So that puts someone and Dr. Ross for 2 minutes and 2 seconds, I believe, in his room. Because I think it was Clarence Sr. who said he saw him fumbling with the wax cylinders while he was leaving. So if he went to his room, then he's recording it now. this has to be Margaret then. Okay, well, we still need to find out year of Judge Point. And we do have this last document. Sorry, I thought we had read the last one, but we still have this one. It says book reviews, nonfiction. So I'm just gonna try to skim this to see if we see Judge Point anywhere. Okay, well, that did not have it. Oh, I wonder if I have to read this now because I didn't see anything. Okay, so it's weird because it says that this book that Brian Williams is writing about Astrid Pelham doesn't really shed any new light on anything. But then it mentions something about this De Courcy family and their son Hugo, who they thought was stillborn, but because he was deformed, they kind of kept him in secret. But who is De Courcy? Did they just change the names? Okay, we'll see if we see this name anywhere. Hugo De Courcy. I don't know what else this gives. The only other thing I could think of was that article with the deaths and the births. So for deaths, do we see a Hugo? We do not see a Hugo. Nor do we see De Courcy. Okay, maybe it has to do with this too. Elijah? Oh no, but he was missing. I don't know. I mean, we do need to figure out the Judge Point thing. Let's just go back to where we read that. Okay, so it was in the footnote here. The event of Pelham's death would later provide the basis for Tewksbury's play Judge Point, further analysis of which can be found in Mark Tewksbury's Jamaica years, 1957 to 71. Is it 1957? I'm not sure. Maybe I'll just try to go with the password and I'll try 1957, see if that works. Because I don't see Judge Point anywhere else. So for the password, we know the film is Racing Hearts. The animal is sparrows. And then we're going to try, what is it, 1957? Yeah, and then, I don't know, maybe 71 if that doesn't work. Okay, so it has to be some year in between here. We'll try 57 first. So it says no spaces, all lowercase. So I'll write it out here first. And then we have Rick Fitch at gocompupost.com. All right, let's see if this works. All right, we are at gocompupost.com. And let's put in this email. And let's try our password. Oh, okay. Passwords are case sensitive, must contain only numbers and letters, must not contain special characters. But I mean, I think we just got it wrong. That's the problem. Can I view it? Yeah. Racing Hearts Sparrows 1957. Do we just have to keep trying each year? Let's try 71. I don't think this is how it's supposed to do it. 58. I thought I had it. 59. 60. 61. Is something else wrong? Did I misspell something? It's Racing Hearts with an S, right? Okay, something's wrong here. Okay, so I think I see what I did wrong here. It's Racing Heart, not Hearts. So let's fix that. Let's try it with 1957 again. Also, hopefully it's easier on the eyes with this dark mode. Okay, Racing Heart Sparrows 1957. Are we going to have to go through all the years again? 58. 59. 60. Is this the right strategy? 61. 62. 63. 63. No, we don't want to save this password. Okay, was I supposed to just keep guessing between the years? Okay, well, looks like we have some attachments here. We're gonna have to listen to some stuff. Let's go in chronological order. So we'll start from May 7th. Let's make this bigger. About Clarence. Hello, Rick. Thank you for your email. Who is this from? James Kemble. Let's see what he asked first. Hello, my name is Rick Fitch, and I was wondering if you could help me with a project I'm working on. I'm looking into the life of the Merivale family, and I found in the records that your father served in the same platoon as Clarence Clark Merivale IV. If it's alright to ask, if it's not too much trouble, would it be possible to ask if your father remembers anything about Clarence from this time? I don't have much information on him during World War II, so this could be a big help in my research. Thank you for your time. Okay, and he responds. I asked my father about Clarence. I remember who he was and that they had fought in the same platoon during the war. Apparently, they all call him Mary instead of Merivale, and it was quicker to say. A silly nickname, but he took it good-naturedly. I asked him if he remembered anything about him, but all he said was, a fine soldier, missing a toe if I recall, could have easily taken lighter duties, but he didn't let a missing pinky stop him. Yeah, we already knew he was missing the pinky toe. Then he said he'd been with Clark right before he died. He'd never told me this before, but he said he'd never allowed himself to forget what Mary had said, in my father's words. He'd been hit by shrapnel from a bomb. By the time he got to him, he'd lost a lot of blood. I tried to keep him alert so we could get him to a medic, but he was fading fast. Oh, that explains why he died before the mom, because he died in war. Before he died, he said, "May God forgive me for what I did." I thought he was talking about the German soldiers he killed, so I told him, "No, Merivale, you didn't do anything wrong." But he said, "When Ely joins me up there, I hope he can forgive me for everything, including the horrific things he heard on that fateful day." And then he went. I asked my father who Ely was, but he said he didn't know. Clark had never told him. I asked if he'd ever told this to anyone else, to which he said, "When I got home, I went to his house and told his mother. She thanked me for telling her, but when I asked who Ely was, she said she didn't know either." I think this is the missing the brother, right, who went missing. After that, I got the feeling that my father didn't want to talk about it anymore, so I hope this helps you with your research, because I don't think you'll get any more. So he says, "Forgive me for what I did. When Ely joins me up there, I hope he can forgive me for everything, including the horrific things he heard on that fateful day." The horrific things he heard. I just want to verify. Elijah. Yeah, it's definitely talking about his brother. So he went missing. Went missing for 7 years, disappeared without a trace. So was he still in the manor? Did something happen? I don't know. Let's just keep going. So next we have May 10th. Let's see. Let's read this one first. My name is Rick Fitch. I was wondering if you could help me with the project I'm working on. I'm currently trying to see if I can solve the mystery about Astrid Pelham's death in 1927, and your book, A Guide to the Spectral Legends in New York State, has been a big help. So if you have got anything additional, blah, 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 possible ghosts. All right. Hi, Rick. Thanks for your email. Glad to hear my book has been of help in your research. There's some info about Merivale Manor that has been unearthed since I initially published A Guide to the Spectral Legends. Was it really 13 years ago? Hard to believe. For the most part, I've been focusing my research on expanding the series to other states since 2009. But I have on the side been continuing my New York research for an expanded revised edition of the New York book. Okay, I don't know if these details are important. Anyway, Merivale Manor. In my research, I've been able to contact people who used to work at the house since it became a tourist attraction. The people who help with the upkeep and stuff, apparently at some point they had to do some renovations in the library, which included moving some of the bookcases. Secret passage? When they moved one of the bookcases, they found a host of strange messages that had been scratched into the wall behind. Most notably one that read, "There was no need for her to die." Who it was that scratched the messages and why, how, when they did it remains a mystery, especially when you take into account that those bookcases were apparently so heavy it took 2 people to move one, even with the books taken off of it. The bookcases have a wooden backboard, by the way, so you would have to move the bookcase to get to the wall. It was scratched pretty deeply, so I imagine it would have taken a couple of days to write it. In my opinion, it could be evidence of poltergeist activity. No, it's not. Certainly a poltergeist would be able to scratch away such a message on the wall, even with the bookcase against it. Sadly, the people who run the house now have denied my requests to do a proper analysis of markings. Okay, well, there was no need for her to die. Okay, let's keep going. Next one. Is this a photo? Yeah, it is. So his name is Rick Fish. He's looking into the death. I was wondering if in the course of your letter collecting, you've come across any correspondence from either Pelham, Merivale family, Bernard Ross, Tewksbury, or Francis. Okay, let's see what this photo looks like. Musa Grove, Oracabessa, Jamaica. Dear Francis, glad to hear you're giving the project your blessing. I'll make sure to put aside 2 tickets for you on opening night. Who's this from? It's from Tewksbury. In regards to your request about what I personally remember, well, as I said, I was out of the house when Astrid fell. Dear Francis, I remember her and Clark having a bust up, but I think I had to leave to do my little errand just after that. The history of that day has been written in such a way that I'm thought to have been there, but that's not wholly the truth. The thing I remember clearest of all is driving up to the house and seeing Clarence Merivale III on the front left balcony of the house. Okay, that is important information. I'm unsure how long he had been there because the line of trees along the side of the road obfuscates the view of the house until you reach the 90-degree turn just outside of the house. All I know is that he was standing on top of the balustrade wrestling with the downspout. Because he just climbed down, which I thought was odd given he had guests around. I guess he must have been fixing it in preparation for the forecasted rain, but I remember it especially clearly because that was the balcony of the bedroom I was staying in. Yeah, that's right. I thought it was a little rude to have snuck into my bedroom without my permission. Anyway, he went inside before I could park the car and call to him. When I entered the house, there was a lot of commotion, including a loud bang that turned out to be Clarence III and Horace breaking through the study door upstairs. Yeah, because it was held by the chair. With everything going on, I forgot to confront Clarence about him being in my room. Every time I remember that day since then, this particular moment sticks out in my memories. When I told Clark about it years after the fact, he pointed out that driving into the garage at that time of day would have meant the sun would have been in my eyes. Oh, so he's saying that, how can you be sure it was my dad? Anyway, I told the police all this when they questioned me, but they brushed it off, I'm guessing. Oh, there's more to it. I forgot. I was zoomed in for the other page. Let's just put it here. Okay, so I think the rest doesn't really matter. There's no such thing as ghosts. I stayed in that house. Definitely heard strange noises coming from the 3rd floor. And despite what the Merivale said, it was most definitely not the wind. What is this noise? Is it the library? Okay. So I don't know how old Clarence Sr. is at this point, whether he's even capable of climbing up and down the side of the balcony, that copper pipe or whatever. But I mean, he's there. He's the only one we know was on a balcony at the time. Okay, this is other letter. Dear Mr. Tewksbury, per your letter dated August 2nd, 1961, I can say that our floor plans dating back to the construction of the house all show the back wall of the library meeting the balcony. None of our records show that this was ever changed, and all of our current records show that the back shelf of the library has always been along the back wall, after the 3rd skylight. With all due respect, are you sure your memory of the room being shorter and only having 2 skylights is accurate? We believe a case of misremembering is the most likely explanation for this discrepancy. I hope this has been of help to your research. All the best, O'Bannon. Oh, okay, so what are they saying? That he thinks the room was smaller because there was a space between the library bookshelf and the wall. Okay, let's see. Hold on. So we have 1 skylight and 2 skylight. And he's saying, no, it was up to here. But now they're saying, no, it's there. So what's going on? The muddy prints go here. And they said they found him in the corner, right? Oh, wait. Okay, let's go back to that. That's when I found Clarence IV sitting in the back corner of the library sulking. Okay, I thought he's missing the pinky toe, and then the drawing of the footprint shows that it's the big toe that's missing. But according to this path, he would have came from the lake after being on the boat with Astrid. Goes into the house, goes into the study, which makes sense because he was in there arguing with Astrid. Goes out into the library, into the corner. And that's exactly the path of this muddy footprint. So maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it is his footprints. So I'm just going to write that there used to be a false wall in the library that made it smaller, and there was a space between that and the balcony. Maybe I do need to look at that photo again too. So here's the test photo. I thought this door is from the study, but am I looking at it wrong? Yeah, it's from the study because it's on this side, and this is the fountain side over here. So it would be looking down this way. It would be on the left side. Okay, I don't know. Let's just keep moving on with the emails. All right, dear Rick, per your request for any correspondence from the people listed, asked around. Big fan of Mark Tewksbury. He has a photo attached. He says they've been verified by authenticators. He says if you're wanting to buy the real things, $250 each, blah, blah, blah. The letters in the picture are copies of the original, so you can rest easy and on the drink being placed down so close to the documents. Originals are stored away in a special space. Sure is kept below room temperature, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I guess it was just a photo. Next, we have some audio. Okay, so this is from the librarian. This is the audio from the candle wax. Or not candle wax, the whatever wax thing you're talking about. There was sufficient regard to your recent visit to the library. Update on one of the articles you had to look at. As part of our efforts to further preserve the articles, increase accessibility, we extensively been transferring audio recordings to our digital database. The wax cylinder recordings were of highest priority. All right, I get it. This is the wax recording. Let's just listen to it.
Hello? Hello? You haven't by any chance seen Mark Tewksbury, have you? I can't seem to find him anywhere. We're doing a grand photo and we need everyone there. Oh, right. Sorry, I'm not interrupting anything important, am I? Well, please come down when you're finished. You're needed too. Splendid. Oh, our grandfather clock hasn't been bothering you, has it? It was my father Abraham's originally, and I know it's rather loud. We can switch off the chimes if it's bothering you. Well, do say if it's keeping you up. Anyway, I've got to find Mr. Tewksbury, not to mention my husband and son who both wandered off. See you downstairs.
Okay. I think that confirmed what I already knew, that it was Margaret. So let's go on to the last one. All right, dear Rick, following from my previous email, I've been in touch with a collector who has an item from Astrid Pelham in her collection. It's been verified as genuine. Apparently, it has a cherished history. The story goes that Pelham gave it to a servant at Merivale Manor to take to the post office, but the servant pocketed it for themselves and held onto it. When it resurfaced in 1990, it was returned to Pelham's great-nephew, who put it up for auction in 2000. Nobody's been able to work out what it means, but I thought you might be interested nonetheless. Okay. Let's copy this over. All right. Sunday, July the 3rd, 1927, Merivale X Manor, Rockhampton. Dear Sir, I agree with your thoughts on how hard France is, but the book on this topic that Fields and Day published this year regarding the recent ballot, there were 84 votes to the left and 85 to the right. I include a list of all ballots cast. Okay, what is this? Okay, so we have left and right, but there are also numbers next to it. And then there's also X's. So we see an X here, Merivale X Manor. There's an X here, an X there. What is this? Is this a puzzle? There's just no clue on how to solve this either. No other documents mentioning puzzles, especially that Astrid used puzzles in coding or whatever. Okay, so what clues do we have? We have how hard France is and Fields and Day. Have we seen those before? Yeah, this has to be some sort of message, because we see R269 twice here. I wonder what the X means. So there's a comma here too. So something, comma. There's a period here. Maybe it's row and column and left and right. Okay, so I think the only document I have that has 2 pages was the one that had a note with Rick on it, right? Let me see. Well, first this is How Hard France and the book on this topic. Okay, Fields and Days. Let me see. Which one is Fields and Day. So we're looking for Spottis Wood at Sea. All right. That is, I think it's this one. So this is, the Spectral Legends. This is Egyptomania. This is Early Plays. This is Francis Parker. Okay, hold on. Let me go back to the list. Or I have it right here. Yeah. So the only one left is this one. So this has to be the one that we need to look at. All right, so now we have some code cracking to do. Let's write it down here. So first we have right, which I'm assuming is the right page. And it's the 5th row and the 2nd word. So it's I. And then 25th row, the 6th word. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Brother. Is the first word right? I, brother? This is going to take forever. I'm just going to fast forward this part. Okay. That took way longer than it should have. But I think I pretty much, it connects a lot of things. So let's go ahead and read this. Dear brother, I'm writing from X Manor, which I believe is Merivale. Clerk Merivale, is the man I've been seeing. Recently, his parents are such horrible people, but I bet they have some skeletons in their closet. I think said skeletons have something to do with some strange sounds that come from the 3rd floor. They say it's the wind, but it's coming from inside the house. I had a secret look. The sounds come from behind a bookcase that revolves in the study. Unfortunately, I could not get it to move. It must need a key. So, I think all the pieces are now connected, and I think we know who did it. So I don't think I'll write it down. I think I'll just say what I think happened. There's probably some details that I'm still not sure of, like how she had the time to write this note. But at some point, she became very curious about this noise in the study. And then we know from, I think it was Mark's account, he knew that it was smaller than before, like there was a space behind the bookshelf. So anyways, I think Astrid is snooping around, and then Clarence and or Meredith find out that she's been snooping around, especially close to this mysterious sound that's supposed to be the wind, but it's coming from in between that bookshelf. But it's becoming inside the house, in that space in the library, between the library and the study. So when she's mentioning skeletons in the closet, I think she literally means a skeleton. I mean, not a skeleton, but a person. So this mentions brother because Astrid is probably writing to her brother, but there's another brother that's mentioned. This, of course, would be Elijah, who went missing and was never found. And then from the emails, we also know that Clarence the Fourth felt guilty about something, especially in relation to Elijah. So he probably knows as well that Elijah didn't go missing. But he is in fact still very much alive and making lots of weird noises. I think it's pretty much confirmed from this piece of evidence. I thought, what is this piece of evidence giving? Like, there's not much information here. But they said that something is very interesting about a certain chapter in the book. And it talks about how they were hiding their son, Hugo, because of a deformity. So I kept this in the back of my mind thinking there might be something going on too in the house, especially with the missing son. So Clarence Sr. sees that Astrid is getting a little too close to the truth. And then, so I don't know if I really cleared everyone, at least for Francis and Mark, we pretty much cleared them. If you want a reminder, Francis was in the billiard room at the time, could not have reached the study. and Mark was not even there. He was at the post office. But he had an interesting observation that when he came back, he saw Clarence III on the balcony to his room, which is on the front left side if you're facing the front of the house. And I'll go back to the map and as to why that's important. Margaret, we know from the audio, it's confirmed that she is the one who is talking with the doctor, Bernard Ross. We didn't really write much notes here, but he, I guess, does go back to his room and Margaret is looking for him and they have a conversation. So that must be around the time. So they're pretty much cleared. As far as Clark, I mean, he is there, but he is the one with the footprints and we don't see footprints on the balcony. So we know that he did not go there. Couldn't have pushed her then. So actually, yeah, I guess that does clear everyone and that only leaves one. So, Mr. Clarence III, you done it. You tried to cover up your shame. Something must have happened to Elijah because it must have been some accident and left a scar on his face. Something that ridiculous that they wanted to hide him. And you couldn't keep that secret for long. Let's go solve this thing. Who killed Astrid Pelham? So can I just write Clarence III? Is that good enough? Let's see. Yes, because I think if I get it wrong, it says you got it wrong. Can't really see with the dark mode. This is New York Star and Globe, reporting only the current affairs deserving of being told. So I think it's pretty much confirming what I said about Elijah. You guys can, of course, pause if you want to read. Now it mentions that there's DNA tests. It also shows that he was afflicted by a rare genetic disease that often appears during childhood and affects the epidermis, causing large growths to appear on the skin all over the body, which causes great pain and discomfort. Dang, that's so messed up that they hit him instead of giving him proper treatment. So, I mean, that does explain why he would be screaming. Then it just says after Elijah died, they changed the library back. All right, well, that was Merivale Manor. Go show Luke and his team some love. I really enjoyed the game. I think this one was a little easier than the Miami one. They kind of pieced everything together for you. That'll do for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give a thumbs up. And if you enjoy this type of content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to try to put these kinds of games into one video moving forward. It just seems like the views tell me that you guys don't enjoy putting it in parts. It just means it might take me longer to put out videos, but hopefully you're okay with that. But you can always hit the notification bell so you know exactly when the next video comes out. And I hope to see you then.